The reading of Raymond Reeves' last will and testament took a turn no one expected when the attorney announced the winner would be chosen by a horse.
He added a verbal stipulation. The ranch goes to the son Don Sol chooses at the ceremony tomorrow morning.
A horse? You can't be serious. That animal decides our inheritance?
Dad must have been confused. Let's be reasonable. We all know Mark can't manage a lemonade stand.
Don Sol, Dad really believed he'd know.
Richard's chair scraped back. Christopher's smile vanished. Both older brothers turned on the attorney.
This is absurd. I run a bank, and you expect me to prance around a courtyard begging a horse to like me?
Mark doesn't even own a tie. You really think Dad meant this for him? The horse will see who belongs.
The decision is final. Ceremony is tomorrow at dawn in the courtyard. I suggest you all get some rest.
Richard and Christopher shot Mark a look cold as iron, then swept out. Mark stayed rooted, staring at the empty chairs. An hour later, inside the hacienda, Richard and Christopher cornered Mark before he could disappear into the stables.
You really think that horse will choose you? You are nothing but a stable hand who threw away every chance Dad gave you.
We'll lend you a bolo tie for the ceremony. You'll need it when the horse walks right past you.
They wouldn't even let me say a word at Dad's funeral. Now, they stand here laughing in his own house.
Just hours earlier, the church had been packed, but only 2 sons rose to speak.
My father built this ranch with sweat and sacrifice. His legacy deserves to be protected by those who truly understand its value.
From the very back pew, Mark could barely see the casket through the crowd. No one had asked him to say goodbye. At the graveside, Christopher moved through the crowd, shaking hands like a politician at a rally. Mark stood 12 feet away, under an old oak, watching strangers offer condolences he'd never receive.
But I can't let them push me out again. Not this time.
Mark retreated to his small bedroom at the end of the hall, the only room in the hacienda that still smelled faintly of saddle soap and hay.
Dad never made me feel small for choosing horses over a courtroom. He said some things you can only prove by showing up.
Easy, son. Let him get used to your heartbeat before you ever ask him to follow.
Raymond had never scolded Mark for walking away from law school. Instead, he'd handed him a lead rope and said the ranch would make its own lawyers. Every night, Mark had brushed Don Sol until the stallion's coat gleamed. His brothers had called it a waste of ambition. Downstairs, Richard sat in their father's study with a roll of cash and let the feeling finish naturally. List of stable hands' names.
A few hundred to the handler, and that animal will walk to me like he's never seen another man.
Across the hall, Christopher stood before a mirror, rehearsing the gentle smile he'd offered Don Sol in the morning.
A horse doesn't understand politics. If I can win over a room of skeptics, I can win over one dumb animal.
While his brothers schemed with cash and mirrors, Mark slipped out the back door toward the stables, where he'd never needed either. The moonlit courtyard was silent, save for the soft click of the stable latch as Mark let himself inside.
They think you're just a horse, Don Sol. But Dad knew you could see what they can't. Tomorrow, you don't have to choose me. Just choose someone who won't sell this place for parts.
From the hallway shadows, Attorney Lawson paused, watching through the stable door. He had arrived early to prepare.
He'd seen families torn by money. Never a man speaking to a horse like a confessor.
Upstairs, Richard was not confessing. He was calculating, a thick roll of bills on the desk.
A handler will do anything for cash. That horse won't know what hit him.
Across the hall, Christopher practiced his warmest smile in the mirror, but his eyes stayed flat.
Raymond Reeves raised a champion. I know how to win over champions.
In the stables, Mark stood with Don Sol. The horse rested his heavy head against the man's chest, and neither moved until the first light. Dawn broke hot and golden over the hacienda courtyard, where folding chairs had been set in rows, and the iron gate stood open like a held breath. A handler led Don Sol through the archway, the stallion's dark bay coat glowing, his eyes missing nothing.
You each stand in the courtyard. The horse will be released. He walks to one of you, and that son inherits everything.
Just a few more minutes. That handler knows what to do.
Charm always wins. I've never lost an audience yet.
Please, Don Sol, just be honest.
The small crowd, ranch hands, neighbors, the attorney's clerk, fell silent.
There will be no interference. The horse's choice is final and binding.
Richard cracked his knuckles. Christopher smoothed his bolo tie. Mark just stood. The handler held Don Sol's lead rope, waiting. The horse's ears swiveled toward the three brothers. The handler unclipped the lead rope. Don Sol did not move. He stood and surveyed the three brothers like a judge reading three guilty faces.
Here he comes, just like I paid for.
Richard's hand opened just enough to flash the sugar cube. Don Sol's nostrils flared, and then he turned his great head away.
That handler was supposed to.
The stallion stepped toward Christopher, who leaned forward with the polished smile he'd practiced.
Easy, big fella. We're both champions here. Come on.
Don Sol pinned his ears flat and sidestepped, refusing even a brush of contact. A murmur rippled through the crowd.
Don't call to him. Don't move. Just wait.
The stallion's ears swiveled toward Mark. He began to walk, slow and deliberate, hooves echoing on the cobblestones. Don Sol lowered his head, eyes on Mark, closing the distance with the quiet certainty of a creature who had already decided. Don Sol stopped inches from Mark's chest, breathed in his scent, and the entire courtyard went silent.
He remembers every night in the stable, the brush, the silence. He knows my heartbeat.
The stallion pressed his forehead gently against Mark's chest, and Mark's hands rose to cradle his head like something precious.
I promised Dad I'd look after you. I am here, Don Sol. I am here.
20 feet away, Richard's jaw went slack, and Christopher's polished smile shattered into something ugly.
The choice is made. Mark Reeves inherits the Reeves Ranch as Raymond Reeves stipulated.
You can't be serious. That horse was tampered with. This is a mockery.
A horse's nose isn't a legal document. We will contest this every step of the way.
Let them threaten. Don Sol knew before any of us set foot in this courtyard.
The attorney's folder didn't flinch. He'd expected fury. The real battle, he knew, was only beginning. The older brothers closed in, two dark suits swallowing the space between them and the attorney.
You'll hear from my attorneys before sundown. This horse show won't stand up in any court.
We'll have this settled by morning. I know a judge who understands the absurdity of this condition.
Raymond's verbal stipulation was witnessed and recorded. You may contest, but the horse's choice was clear.
Richard shouldered past Mark, then grabbed his arm, a grip meant to remind him who had always been stronger.
Enjoy your victory lap, little brother. It won't last the week.
He's never touched me like that. Not with so much hate behind his fingers.
They'll fight dirty, Mark. But your father left more than just a horse. He left proof they don't know about yet.
Proof I never asked for. But I'll stand behind it, whatever it takes.
By dusk, the courtyard was empty. Only Mark and Don Sol remained. The stallion's steady breath a quiet promise against the storm to come. Weeks later, the Reeves dispute arrived at the county courthouse, where the stone walls had heard a century of greed. Judge Esther Vance peered over her glasses with the weariness of a woman who'd heard every excuse twice. Richard's silver-haired attorney argued that a horse couldn't have testamentary intent and called the condition a sentimental farce. Christopher sat motionless beside his brother, a faint smile on his lips, the smile of a man who'd already made his calls.
2 against 1, and the judge looks ready to throw it out. What were you thinking, Dad?
Lawson rose, his folder tight against his chest, and the courtroom bristled.
Raymond Reeves left more than a horse. He left a video testament.
The judge leaned forward, her gavel forgotten, eyes narrowing on the attorney's folder.
And hospital surveillance footage that will show this court exactly who each son really is.
When court recessed, the horse was already a memory. The video would put 3 sons on trial. He didn't go to the house. He went straight to the stables, where the only judgment he'd ever trusted was waiting in a stall. Don Sol pushed his muzzle through the bars, and Mark pressed his forehead against the horses.
I am not fighting for the ranch, boy. I am fighting so they can't bury him twice.
The memory came back. The hospital window, his father's hand on the glass, watching Don Sol in the grass.
Just let me see him brush that horse one more time.
Across town, Richard and Christopher raised crystal glasses, convinced the video would be a sentimental footnote. But the footage Lawson had prepared wasn't a farewell. It was a reckoning.
Dad didn't just leave us a horse. He left a mirror. And tomorrow, they'll have to look.
Mark stayed with Don Sol until the horizon bled pink, the horse's breath steady against his neck. When the sun rose over the ranch, Mark Reeves was ready to show the world a father's final truth. When court resumed, the first image on the screen wasn't a face. It was the courtyard, hot and silent as the morning they'd all tried to forget. The recording played without comment. Don Sol walking away from Richard's hidden palm, past Christopher's outstretched hand, straight toward the brother who hadn't moved.
So they're replaying the circus. The judge won't care about sentiment. Objections are already drafted.
Sentiment. She's a realist. This changes nothing.
Judge Vance watched with the stillness of granite. She'd seen performance before. This didn't feel like one.
Your Honor, the footage you just saw was not a coincidence. The next piece of evidence will prove it.
Dad, I hope you knew what you were doing. They're about to see everything.
A larger screen descended from the ceiling, and the courtroom lights dimmed to a hush. The video file loaded, freezing on Raymond Reeves in his study, the last testament of a father who trusted a horse more than his own blood. The court held its breath. The truth was about to speak. The video stuttered to life. Raymond Reeves, thin and gray, in his study 3 weeks before the end.
I know my sons. Before my body is cold, you'll tear each other apart over this land. That's why Don Sol will decide. He's the only creature on this ranch who's never wanted a thing from me except a handful of oats and a kind word. The only son who ever fed him without seeking favor. That's the son I trust with this ranch. The horse will know.
He's not naming names, but the whole courtroom knows he's carving me out.
This is worse than a direct accusation. He's made us look like strangers in our own family.
You never wanted the cameras, Dad. But you did this for me, for Don Sol, for the truth.
The screen froze on Raymond's final frame, a father who trusted a horse more than his own blood.
Your Honor, the testament is clear, but Raymond Reeves also left us a record of what happened when no one was watching.
The courtroom lights dimmed again. The next footage would strip every mask clean. The surveillance footage opened on a sterile hospital room, the date stamp marking 3 days before Raymond Reeves took his last breath.
Dad, sign the ranch over to me. Mark will run it into the ground. You know he will.
The words, caught by a ceiling camera, stripped away every polished eulogy Richard had ever given.
This is a violation of privacy. That footage was never meant for public hearing.
Judge Vance's gavel cracked once. Her voice was ice. Sit down, Mr. Reeves. Your objection is noted. The clip continued. Raymond too weak to answer. Richard's hand gripping the bed rail until his knuckles went white.
So, that's what Dad heard in his last days. Begging, not love.
Every juror's staring at me like I am a vulture.
The monitor froze on Richard's silhouette, then switched to a new timestamp. The next clip would make it worse. Christopher hadn't moved, but the sheen on his forehead had nothing to do with the courtroom heat. The next clip started with Christopher beside the same bed, a manila folder splitting the space between him and his father.
Just sign here, Dad. The water rights this ranch needs someone who can make decisions.
I won't sign over the water rights, Christopher. That's not what this land is for.
The silence in the courtroom was a held breath. Then Christopher's voice on the recording twisted.
You'll regret this, Dad, when this ranch drowns in debt. You remember who could have saved it. I sound like a thug. Every donor in this room is memorizing my threat.
He tried to break him while he was dying.
Judge Vance's pen stopped moving. Her gaze, heavy as a stone, settled on Christopher. The clip ended on Raymond's hand, too weak to push the papers away, then cut to black. The courtroom knew the score. 2 sons had tried to take. One had simply stayed. Then the final clip appeared, a date stamp, 3 nights before Raymond's last. Mark sat at the bedside, holding a horse brush.
I just want to make sure he's comfortable, Dad. He misses you. I've been brushing him every night.
That horse, he knew the right son before I did.
Raymond's smile was the first genuine one the court had seen on that screen. Then the footage shifted to the window. Mark outside in the small corral, Don Sol's coat gleaming under his strokes. Raymond's hand lifted to the glass, as if he could touch them both. In the courtroom, the silence broke with a single, stifled sob from the gallery.
That's all I ever wanted, Dad. Just for you to see.
The video ended on a frozen image of Mark, forehead pressed to Don Sol's, unaware of the camera. No one objected. The case had spoken. Judge Vance returned, and the courtroom rose like a tide. Her eyes swept the room once before she spoke.
The verbal stipulation, though unusual, was clearly expressed and witnessed. Don Sol's choice aligns with the testator's documented intent. The surveillance footage removes any doubt. This court upholds the will. Mark Reeves inherits the ranch in its entirety.
The gavel fell with a sound that ended 10 years of silence, echoing through the wood-paneled walls.
It's over. Everything.
My career. This stain won't wash out.
Thank you, Dad.
Edward Lawson placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. The only congratulations that mattered. Outside the tall courthouse windows, a horse trailer sat in the sun. Don Sol had waited the whole time. The clerk stamped the order, and the Reeves Ranch belonged to the son who had simply shown up. Richard pushed through the crowd of reporters that had gathered, his jaw locked. Not a word to anyone. Christopher's driver opened the rear door, and the politician slipped inside without a backward glance, the car disappearing down the avenue. But Mark didn't notice them leave. The ranch hands who'd sat through every day of the trial were already pulling him into rough, tearful embraces.
They believed in me, even when I almost didn't believe in myself.
Your father knew what he was doing, Mark. He'd be proud.
Then the handler unlatched the trailer door, and Don Sol stepped into the light. The stallion walked straight to Mark, lowered his head, and nuzzled his chest like a promise kept.
He waited. All this time, he waited.
Mark pressed his forehead against Don Sol's, and the courthouse plaza held its breath. The ranch was his. But more than that, Raymond Reeves' quietest son had finally been heard. 1 month after the gavel fell, Mark sent word that his brothers should return to the hacienda.
Dad would have wanted you here, but Don Sol made the choice. I want you to have something of his. Richard, I am giving you Santiago. He's 6, steady, and he'll remind you what this land is for.
A key and a horse. Are you trying to buy my conscience?
Buy nothing. This is Dad's way of keeping the family in the family, even when it's broken.
Bella, huh? I remember her as a foal. I won't say thank you, but I'll come back.
Richard took the key without a smile, and Christopher led Bella toward the trailer. Neither looked back.
Maybe one day they'll see what Don Sol saw, that the ranch is a home, not a prize.
The gates of the Reeves Ranch stayed open that day, and for the first time in 10 years, the wind carried no bitter words. The ranch belonged to Mark, but its spirit belonged to the quietest son and the horse who knew him. The morning after his brothers left, Mark led Don Sol to the north pasture, the best grass on the ranch.
This is yours now, boy. All of it, the way Dad would have wanted.
He slipped the halter free. Don Sol stood still, then burst forward, a dark bay thunder across the green. Don Sol kicked up his heels, bucking and spinning with a joy that had waited years for an open gate.
He's never run like that. Not once.
When the stallion finally slowed, he trotted back to Mark, snorting clouds into the cool morning.
Come on, let's go home.
That evening, Mark led Don Sol into the main stable, beside the hacienda, the stall Raymond had built for the horse he loved most. He hung the brass nameplate himself, fingers tracing the letters before stepping back. Don Sol nickered softly from inside, and the sound filled the hacienda for the first time in months. Dusk painted the hacienda porch in amber light that evening, and Mark lowered himself onto the old wooden steps alone. Don Sol stood at the stable fence just yards away, his great head resting over the top rail, ears tilted toward the house.
He knew, didn't he? Dad knew you'd pick right. He never doubted you.
Don Sol nickered low, a sound like a door closing gently on years of hurt.
I finally feel like I belong on this porch. Not as a guest, but as the one who stayed.
Beyond the fence, The lights of the adobe ranch buildings flickered on, tiny stars on the darkened land. The wind had no argument in it, only the scent of dry grass and the promise of morning chores.
I'll brush you again tomorrow, boy. Every night, like always.
Don's soul whickered softly and turned his head, as if to say the night could come now. Mark stayed on the steps until the last color bled from the sky, the ranch breathing quietly around him. The next dawn came pale gold, and Mark walked to the main stable before the ranch hands had risen. He tossed a woven blanket over Don Sol's back and buckled nothing else. No saddle, no bridle, just the halter he'd always trusted. Man and horse moved into the yard, Don Sol's hooves pressing quiet prints into the dust. Then Mark slipped onto the horse's broad back, and without a word, Don Sol surged forward into the waiting fields. The golden grass parted like a sea, and Mark's breath came in rhythm with the pounding hooves. Don Sol ran for the joy of it, and Mark let him, the reins loose, the morning his. The sun climbed, stretching their shadow into a single creature across the earth. Mark steered toward the ridge, where his father used to sit. And when they stopped, Don Sol stood breathing hard, head high, surveying the land. Mark rested his palm on the stallion's neck, feeling the heartbeat that had never lied. He didn't speak. The ranch answered for him, in the grazing herds, the distant adobe walls, and the stallion beneath his hands. In the end, it wasn't a fortune or a feud that defined the Reeves ranch. It wasn't the weight of a father's absence, or the sharp words of brothers. It was a horse who knew the heart of a man, and a son who simply loved them both. Don Sol lived the rest of his days as Mark's only companion in the hacienda's main stables. The stallion who chose the quietest son never wandered far, and the son who had been overlooked became the keeper of a promise. The Reeves ranch didn't just survive. It became the place where a horse's choice was honored, and a son's love was enough.